Hello and welcome. My name is Meepolis and this is Literally Graphic. And today is my initial thoughts video on the Christopher Priest run on Black Panther. I've just finished reading the first of 4 volumes in the complete series collection published in 2015 and watched a bunch of YouTube videos of other people's thoughts and interviews for context. But before that, let's talk Black YouTube creators. I'm straying a bit from BookTube to highlight someone who I started following about a month ago called Rico Rants, in more of a leftist space where videos average at least an hour. At least that's what it feels like. Rico's rants tend to be interesting and delightfully short. Check them out. But getting back to Black Panther though, warning for a viewpoint character who makes several overly sexual comments about adolescent / underage women / girls. Their representation is definitely of as women, which I have mixed feelings about. Back when I was first getting into Black Panther in 2017, every time anyone said anything about the character, Christopher Priest came up. The library didn't have it though. So then it took some time to get my hands on my own copy, and now they do have the entire series. Kinda sigh. But then I was sort of moving away from superhero comics for a bit, and I probably should just stay away, but here we are. I'm resigned to the fact that I literally have no taste, and that's okay. I certainly don't make these videos for fame and notoriety. But who is Christopher Priest? Well, he's a man, probably a straight one. He was the first Black man to work in mainstream comics as a writer / editor, and like most firsts, is reportedly hard to work with. He also self-describes as a jerk, but it is an amazing coincidence that so many minorities are portrayed as hard to work with. So, yeah. After Black Panther, he apparently felt pigeonholed into just writing black characters, took a bit of a break from writing comics, was ordained as a minister, drove a Greyhound bus, and only came back when DC offered him the white character Deathstroke. The first thing that pops up when you DuckDuckGo Priest is a handful of excited takes by Comicsgate folks about the fact that Priest always says he wants to be considered a writer, not just a black writer. Listening to him answer questions about diversity over and over and over again, however, I think the specific point, and similar dismay to typecasting creators to characters, is balanced out by his comments about how the companies that make comics need to be more diverse, and that things like being black, Latino, or a woman means creators bring something different to the things they write. While I'm bored of reading stuff like white creators doing black characters and men writing women, I do think that BIPOC creators, people who fall outside the cisgender heterosexual binary, do have something to bring to the white bread mainstream establishment. Foreshadowing some of the points I'll be making later, I do think that Priest has some shortcomings when it comes to female and queer representation, but he certainly has some interesting things to say about race, and his white characters are different. And then there's all the other people involved. It's really hard to highlight every single person involved in Marvel and DC Comics, so I think I'll just combine it with my art commentary. That said, flipping through all the relevant Comics Vine pages, I did want to note that, for better or for worse, Joe Jusko released it out as having a lot of scantily clad bodies with boobs in his timeline. I'll probably touch on this a bit more in the gender section of the review. In the first issue, inks and pencils were by Mark Teixeira, Alitha E. Martinez on background assist, with Brian Haberlin on colors. This is the point where it really felt like a Vertigo title, and while it lacked cross-hatching, it did have some nice grit to it. Things lightened up ever so slightly when Avalon Color briefly took over on colors in issue 2. The line work became more streamlined with guest artist Vince Evans in issue 5. Issue 6, we see another guest artist with Joe Jusko and the return of Avalon Color on colors. Technically very skilled, this part of the run had the least amount of character. Issue 7 mixed things up a bit more with Joe Jusko still listed as the artist, with Jeremy Palmiotti on inks, with the odd addition of Vince Evans on washes, which I guess denotes that different art materials were used. In issue 8, we see a rather fun 5 pages of more classic-looking comic art with poppy primary colors before things go back to more normal. Joe Jasko and Amanda Connor were on pencils, with Jimmy Palmiotti and Vince Evans on inks, and the letter washes again, and Brian Haberlin is back on colors. Issue 9 saw another dramatic change that set a tone shift for the rest of the book. Not totally classic comic, the color scheme remained largely the same, but the character proportions and line quality felt less gritty and more cartoony. Mike Manley was on the art, with Chris Sotomayor on colors. Less noticeable visually, Mark Bright took over on art, with Nelson DeCastro on inks, and Chris Sotomayor stayed on colors. Issue 13, The End, is another shift with more elongated character designs and slightly shinier color finish. Sal Ludo on pencils, Bob Almond on inks, Brad Venkata on colors, and a font offensively close to papyrus used for these credits. On issue 14, Priest and Sal Ludo are jointly credited with writer, storytellers, and pencils, with Bob Almond on inks again. Brad Venkata was on colors. This team continues through the end of this collection with issue 17. Assuming that the sexualization of apparently female characters is given, the thing that actually bothered me the most visually about this graphic novel was how Akabe resembled one of the racist characters of the former President Obama. Obviously, this predates Obama's most visible job, but it still felt like Akabe was a caricature of an evil African. Satire, I suppose? I don't know. Otherwise, the coloration of all the black characters is very good. Flipping the book over, Goodreads has this to say about the complete collection, Volume 1. Black Panther, reinvented as a sharp and witty political satire. Believe it! T'Challa is the man with the plan, as Christopher Priest puts the emphasis on the Wakandan king's reputation as the ultimate statesman, as seen through the eyes of the U.S. government's Everett K. Ross. As the Panther investigates a murder in New York, Ross plays devil's advocate in an encounter with Mephisto, and a new regime seizes control in Wakanda. When the truth behind the coup becomes clear, T'Challa finds himself an enemy of the state, and a major revelation threatens to destroy his relationship with the Avengers. Plus, meet Queen Divine Justice. Is she ready to join T'Challa's deadly crew of female bodyguards, the Dora Milaje? Are they ready for her? Hold on to your pants, because Ross sure can't. Collecting Black Panther, 1998, 1-17. Overall, the plot, especially the initial one with the devil, reminded me a lot of a Constantine story, which certainly increased my enjoyment as a Vertigo fan. I've rarely run into Marvel titles that played with spiritual realm stuff, but I guess this is something that happens in Black Panther somewhat regularly. The story was not always the easiest to follow due to the nature of the unreliable narrator, but it was an interesting way to tell the story in a genuinely different sort of way, much like what I appreciate in more and not so by the checklist, like how Jason Aaron seems to do his, quote, complicated stories. So, digging into the different intersectionalities, as I've alluded to, I feel like Priest has some oversights when it comes to his treatment of what is presumably all cis women. Queerness of any kind is completely absent, unsurprisingly, combined with the somewhat recent controversy over his now removed Newsarama interview. I can't say it's much more than what I expect from some older straight cis dudes. Not that everyone needs to enjoy this book, but I feel like more isn't that much better, but it still gets lots of nostalgia points for me, so I guess I'm just waiting and seeing. I certainly don't appreciate the Dora Milaje being overly sexualized and jealous 14-year-olds, even if it is satire. Oh, on the small plus side, we do get a few apparently male asses, ? There's perhaps a chance that things will improve as the series continues, and NB can only hope anyway. Race is a very well developed aspect of this series. Obviously, I feel like each black author has brought their own spin to the series, starting with this revival from obscurity, and that they can each be of value in different ways and won't be trying to rank them. While Priest's choice of viewpoint character can be more than a little annoying, the decision to draw attention to the white lens, which most people would be reading through, is quite smart. Class is treated as non-existent in the book. The lowest ranked and least powered person is the viewpoint character, and he's still a government employee without anything by way of financial need. Similarly, I'm not sure if disability versus ability is ever confronted. I rated this volume 3 out of 5 stars. Bye y'all, keep reading and resist white supremacy. And as always, Literally Graphic is recorded on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation. I live here because of British colonization, Indigenous genocide, and more geographically specific, Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, which was finalized in 1805 between representatives of the Crown and certain Mississauga peoples. This treaty was a lie and has since been broken many times over. Saying so reflects only my own small steps towards knowing the truth and does nothing for reconciliation.